When we think of vampires, we think of bloodsuckers who suck the life force from you. The undead, a being with hypnotic powers, with the ability to romance a person into willfully being their victim. A being with extreme strength, a manipulator, a night stalker, creature of the night, unable to be out in the daytime and sleeps in a coffin or other uninviting and dark places. They usually have sharp piercing teeth and black, red, yellow, abnormal or normal eyes. Ability to read minds and the ability to move faster than the eye. A demon with a slow aging process with the ability to rejuvenate. They can come across as a normal human being but without the ability to cast a reflection, but there is always an element of creepiness about them. They can't enter a home without being invited first. This would be why they show themselves as human, so they can trick their way into a home. According to legend, and what we see on some movies, there are only a few ways to kill a vampire. Stake through the heart, holy water, garlic, silver, beheading, fire, crosses and sunshine. There are vampires born into it, vampires turned into it, and also half vampires that can walk in the day, also known as day walkers. Early films showed vampires who lived in old castles like Nosferatu, a creepy long-toothed bald man who liked to creep up on you and appear by your bedside. And Count Dracula, who was based on Vlad the Impaler, Vlad III, Prince of Wallachia. Vlad was a member of the House of Draculesti, or Dracula, ruling mainly from 1456 to 1462 in Romania. His father, Vlad II, Dracul, was a member of the Order of the Dragon, which was founded to protect Christianity in Eastern Europe. Vlad III is revered as a folk hero in Romania, as well as other parts of Europe, for his protection of the Romanian population, both south and north of Danube. As the Coinerman, the Impaler suggests, his practice of impaling his enemies is part of his historical reputation. During his lifetime, his reputation for excessive cruelty spread abroad to Germany and elsewhere in Europe. The name of the vampire Count Dracula in Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula was inspired by Vlad's patronymic. Vlad was born in Transylvania, which was the Kingdom of Hungary, which is today part of Romania. We have so many nightmares about actually coming across a vampire in a dark alley or somewhere similar but equally as dark and creepy. Young children would wrap themselves in quilts for fear of meeting a vampire, but to no avail, because if there really was a vampire, they would be putty in his hands. But of course this is all imagination, and none of it's true. So what about vampirism? Clinical vampirism is more commonly called Renfield Syndrome and is an obsession with drinking blood. Psychologist Richard Knoll, who examined cases of clinical vampirism, invented the syndrome. Knoll noticed that some of these patients behaved like a demented character named Renfield from Bram Stoker's Dracula, Renfield being a delusioned mental patient in a lunatic asylum who ate spiders and flies to absorb their life force. Knoll saw this as the human counterpart to the vampire, so late one night in 1990, while he was writing his book's introduction, he jokingly suggested that clinical vampirism be renamed Renfield Syndrome. People with symptoms of this syndrome are mostly male. For them, blood has a mystical quality, as it can enhance their lives in a pseudo-serious vein. Knoll followed diagnostic protocol and identified a specific set of stages. The first stage is some sort of event that happens before puberty, where the child is excited in a sexual way by some event that involves blood injury or the ingestion of blood. At puberty, it becomes fused with sexual fantasies, and a typical person with Renfield syndrome begins with auto-vampirism. That is, they begin to drink their own blood, and then move on to other living creatures. It has compulsive components. Psychiatrists have long been aware of certain cases in which someone has a delusional notion that he or she is a vampire and therefore needs blood. This arises not from fiction and film, but from an erotic attraction to blood and the idea that it conveys certain powers. It develops through fantasies involving sexual excitement. During the mid-1880s, German neurologist Richard von Krafft-Ebing noted the sexual presentation of the attacks in that they were compulsive and often aimed at a victim in a way that suggested lust. For example, a 24-year-old vine dresser who murdered a 12-year-old girl in the woods admitted that he also drank her blood, mutilated her genitals, tore out and ate part of her heart, and buried her remains. There was also the man who cut his arm for his wife to suck on before sex because it aroused her so strongly. Clinical vampirism is named after the mythical vampire, and it is a recognizable, although rare, clinical entity characterized by periodic compulsive blood drinking, affinity with the dead, and uncertain identity. It is hypothetically the expression of an inherited archaic myth, the act of taking blood being a ritual that gives temporary relief. From ancient times, vampirists have given substance to believe in the existence of supernatural vampires. 4 vampirists, including Haig, the acid bath murderer, are described from childhood. They cut themselves, drank their own exogenous human or animal blood to relieve a craving, dreamed of bloodshed associated with the dead, and had a change in identity. They were intelligent, with no family mental or social pathology. Some self-cutters are auto-vampirists. Females are not likely to assault others for blood, but males are potentially dangerous. Vampirism may be the cause of unpredictable, repeated assault and murder, and should be looked for in violent criminals who are self-mutilators. Because the disease not generally being recognised and no current treatment is known, there are debates about the dangers of not being able to treat this disorder, as patients are potentially dangerous to society. James River was 23 years old when he shot and killed his elderly disabled grandmother as she sat in her wheelchair. He then stabbed her several times in the heart. He drank the blood that gushed from her wounds and then set fire to her house to remove the evidence. He claimed he had been possessed by a 700-year-old vampire, and that was the reason why he needed to drink blood. He also claimed his grandmother was a vampire, who fed the vampire which possessed him while he slept. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a further 10 to 20 years for the arson. Mauricio Lopez's niece, Mariela Mendez, was having an affair with her sister's husband, Macario Cruz. When Mauricio found out about the affair, he decided to kill Cruz and drink his blood. He stabbed Macario in the heart and the liver, in front of his niece and her 4 children. He then took a plastic cup and filled it with Cruz's blood, then drinking it, before fleeing the scene. He's now facing charges from second-degree murder to aggravated assault and aggravated battery with a deadly weapon.